Hi, everyone. I'm so happy that many of you are joining us this evening or this afternoon, depending on where in the United States you are. And we're doing this webinar as part of this wonderful day to celebrate girls. This is the International Day of the Girl. And so together, Women of Peace Corps Legacy, Dining for Women, the National Peace Corps Association are partnering to talk a little bit about the day, about the projects, what we're doing, and the importance of girls globally. And globally is here in the United States, as well as all other countries in the world. So we're delighted that you're here. And as you probably note, that as you have questions or comments, you can type them in the chat. We will pick them up and everybody will see them, and then we will get right back to you. So we'll do a small presentation, and from that, then we will look at your chat questions or comments and make sure that we get back to you. So here we go. Just for you all to know, this is the first time I've ever done a webinar. And so let's just say my mechanics in doing this are not quite perfect. Beth, Ellen's are, but mine leave a little to be desired. Anyway, here we go. And what we're going to do is I'll introduce myself, and then I'll let Beth Ellen Holman introduce herself. And then we'll talk a little bit about the International Day of the Girl. We'll talk about Dining for Women, and then we'll talk about the Women of Peace Corps Legacy. So I'm Jody Olson. I'm president of the Women of Peace Corps Legacy, and I'm guessing, as some of you know, I was a Peace Corps volunteer in 1966-67 in Tunisia, North Africa, and have served a lot of positions with Peace Corps. But these past 2 or 3 years have really devoted, with a lot of other wonderful women, to celebrating women who have had some role with Peace Corps. So with that, let me turn it to you, Beth Ellen.
Hi, I am Beth Ellen Holloman, and I'm the president of Dining for Women. Jody, thank you so much for putting this webinar together tonight. Dining for Women is the world's largest giving circle dedicated to women and girls internationally. And our mission is to end extreme poverty through women and girls around the world. And I will tell you more about that later. But first, I want to say that we were welcomed into the Peace Corps family a few years ago when Dining for Women partnered with the Let Girls Learn program at the Peace Corps, and we gave $100,000 to fund projects all over the world for women and girls through things like Glow Camp and STEM projects for girls. So we just are very excited to be here and to be included with National Peace Corps Association and Women of Peace Corps Legacy. Thank you. Jody, you are on mute.
Oh, okay. I'm going to talk now a little bit about the day, the International Day of the Girl. And in that, we'll just show why this is so important. Today is the International Day of the Girl, and it has been celebrated largely through the United Nations. And there are 1.1 billion girls. And as we think about it, 1.1 billion girls globally as a source of power, energy, and creativity. And understanding that respecting girls, providing education for girls, activity for girls is really the future of leadership and work globally in the next generation. And as you see by the quote, that no society will flourish and peace agreement will be lasting without empowering girls in peace building and reconstruction. And it is so important that we recognize this and do everything we can to support girls and their education and work as they grow up. And so the UN has chosen this day, UNESCO has chosen this day to show a lot of ways that we can support women and girls. And as you see from the slides that we have and you can go to later, are the URLs for the websites where a lot of this celebration is being described. And one of the important elements is to bring the girls forward, tell girls stories, all the different ways that girls have been able to show the importance of their work, even as girls. And I think, as most of us know, we recognize that, I guess, in the pecking order of life and in global activity, girls often come up shorthanded, which is why spending the day thinking about girls and what can we do for girls is so important. And just as a couple of examples, here is the number of countries that have laws that help protect girls. And you see that only 64% of countries even have laws against statutory rape, and that only half have laws against criminal or corporal membership. So for girls, there's a high risk of what can happen. This next set of information really says why we need to be there for girls, to give them their voice, their education, their literacy. As you see, 1 in 5 children are killed by, under 20 are killed by homicide. And you see the number that are bullied, but look particularly that 1 in 4 girls, 15 to 19, 70 million girls are victims of physical violence. And 1 in 10 girls under 18 have had forced sexual intercourse. And 3 in 10 adults believe that punishment is necessary in raising children. And so you look at some of the issues, you look at how girls are treated in so many parts of the world and recognize why we need to focus on girls, attend to girls, give them programs and projects to give them dignity and honor as they're growing up. So as part of the International Day of the Girl this year, the emphasis on empowering girls before, during, and after emergencies, which makes it a lifetime, a daily, a monthly activity in which we get involved. And you think about why empowering girls, this is why the UN chose it for this day. 535 million children were living in countries affected by conflict, natural disasters, epidemics, and other emergencies. And when you think about the 50 million children on the move, more than half of whom were forcibly displaced. I mean, we all know the headlines, we've seen all the pictures, but what we have an opportunity to do is to take these kind of data and think about, what is this for an individual girl? What is this for girls in a particular community? And with that, I now want to turn it to Beth Ellen, because to answer that question of what do we do, how can we participate, how can we be part of this, Dining for Women has really put forth an extraordinary program that I want to encourage a lot of people to get involved with. Beth Ellen.
Thanks, Jody. I'm going to now share my screen and put up my little story here. So, as I said earlier, Dining for Women is the largest giving circle dedicated to ending poverty for women and girls internationally in the world. And the great thing about Dining for Women is it's a way to put into action everything that you feel when you hear the statistics about women and girls that Jody just mentioned, but also it's a place that you can find community. And that's what is so similar about returned Peace Corps volunteers and Dining for Women members. We do two things at Dining for Women. We create a global citizen community, and we're creating global citizens, and we also invest in gender equality. We invest in gender equality because we know that when you empower women and girls and there's equality in the home and in the community, that women are able to thrive, but not just women and girls, it's also the whole family, the community, and even nations are in a better position to create peace. So our vision at Dining for Women is to have connections between people here and people and women and girls abroad. And we do that through a number of things. We have 400 or so chapters around the country that meet on a monthly basis, and we learn together, we share a meal together, and we become a more empowered community ourselves. And we're also giving our dollars collectively to ensure that women and girls abroad in living in poverty are empowered as well. So the way that we invest in women and girls is we have three types of grants or funding streams that we focus on. The first is the featured grant. And the featured grant is what we consider, this is where we're really impacting the life of individual women and girls. This is where a woman's life will be completely transformed because she was working with working as a beneficiary in an organization that empowers her and empowers her family. We also have sustained grants, and those are grants that are over a period of 3 years. And in that way, we're impacting a community for a longer time. We're building capacity for that organization. And then our impact partnerships, the Peace Corps was actually our first impact partner. And our first partnership with them was $100,000. And we just recently gave another investment of $70,000 to the Peace Corps, again, for projects that affect women and girls. Our impact partnerships are moving in the direction where we can have help to leverage other funders so that we can hopefully have a more systemic impact on systemic change. And so that way we're affecting the individual woman or girl on the ground living in Kenya or India or Nepal. But we're also helping to ensure that organizations have the sustainability that they need. And we're also hopefully impacting systems. So how does this work? It is very, very simple. You invite your friends over for dinner. You share a meal, usually a potluck meal. You learn about the featured grant of the month, and you learn about the culture and the situation for women and girls. You learn about the political situation. You learn about the geography, and you discuss. You give what you can. Dining for Women's model, the Giving Circle model, is wonderful because it has really democratized philanthropy. We have made it so that someone who can give $5, that money is leveraged so that we can give a $50,000 grant that month. And that is very, very important. And then what happens is people from the dinner, from the community that's just happened, people leave more empowered. They're more connected to the world. So many of our members leave their chapter meetings and they give additionally to organizations affecting women and girls. They join the boards, they travel, they talk to people in their community. There's all kinds of things that are happening because of what people are learning and sharing in Dining for Women chapter meetings. So I wanted to share with you what our featured grant is for this month. And actually right downstairs where I am, there is a chapter meeting gathering, and representatives from Sahar Education, which is the featured grantee of the month, are down there, and they'll be speaking to this group. Sahar's mission is to create educational opportunities for girls and women in Afghanistan, but our grant, our $50,000 grant, is working to make sure that girls have access to education and they're encouraged to finish their education so that they are not being married as children. So should I stop for questions here, Jody?
Sure. Do you want to pose a question?
Does anyone have questions for me so far about Dining for Women?
Okay. Does anyone have a question? I know I suggested to use chat. Let me see if there's any questions on chat. Hold on. I don't see any questions from chat.
Okay.
I have a question, however, of how you select the programs, to talk a little bit more, because you talked about featuring one each month. And how do you go about that process?
That is a great question, Jody. Thank you. We have, it looks like there's a couple people that have posted questions on chat too.
Yes,
so
great, go for it.
All right, so how do we pick the grants? We have, for our featured grants, we have 2 grant cycles a year, and we have a competitive process. In each of those cycles, we pick 6 grantees. And one of the things that makes Dining for Women really special is that we have a volunteer grant committee that works for many, many months, pulling together research, evaluating the applicants, discussing the merits of the applicants, and helping to narrow down to 6 grantees. We usually have about around 100 to 130 applicants per cycle. So around 250 applicants a year now for 12 featured spots. And so the greatest thing about our vetting process is that we often know more about these grantees than they know about themselves, because we have the most intense researchers on the planet. They are researching every website, any little trail, rabbit hole where the organization is mentioned. Our team, our grant selection committee, is following up on that and finding out as much as they can about our grantees. And it is really, what it really says is that we're offering almost a service to Dining for Women members, because we know and they can trust that we have picked the very best of the best, and are really helping to fund grantees that are really going to make a difference. Our sustained grantees are then invited from the pool of our featured grantees. So it looks like there's quite a few questions that are coming up. I'm gonna try to look at these.
Yeah, you see some of the questions. For example, one is asking about the average size of a grant, and I appreciate the answer to one of the earlier questions that with the 400 chapters, that most are not returned Peace Corps volunteers. And the respondent said, I was never in Peace Corps and have been involved with Dining for Women for 6 years. If I might leap in at that point, and it's not 400, it's 44, but to leap in and say one of the exciting aspects about Dining for Women is the mixture of women that participate. And so a lot of the women are, you have some that are returned volunteers, you have some that have other international backgrounds, but it really is building an understanding among Americans or women in the US or in the community who don't have much experience internationally. Do you want to pick up on that?
Sure. Okay. The people who are members of Dining for Women are people from, as you said, Jody, they're every walk of life. But we do have many Dining for Women appeals to Peace Corps former or returned Peace Corps volunteers. And so my experience has been that almost every chapter that I visit, they either are related, there's someone who's related to a Peace Corps volunteer, or there's a returned Peace Corps volunteer in the chapter itself. And here's another example right here of how we have connections with the Peace Corps. Am I answering your question, Jody?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Jennifer Schechter was awarded not 2017, but 2016 at your Peace Corps Connect conference. She was awarded the Sergeant Shriver Humanitarian Award, I believe. She started an organization in Togo called Hope Through Health. And we granted her $50,000 for her community health workers program in Togo. It's a tremendous program, and we have many other organizations like this that we've supported over the years. It was only till recently that we started to try to identify which organizations are actually led or founded by Peace Corps volunteers. And so Jenny Schechter was one of our big aha moments, and we were really excited about that, especially since she was recognized by the NPCA. Somebody did ask, what are the ranges of the grants? The grants, the featured grants, range from $35,000 to $50,000, and they can be paid over 1 to 2 years.
Okay, terrific. I have seen a couple of questions that are related to individuals who have spent time in a country, in particular the person who is in Sierra Leone as a Peace Corps volunteer, that would like to set up something like scholarships or other activities for girls where they were a Peace Corps volunteer. Does that make sense through Dining for Women? Is that a grant applicant that is possible? Or
well, that brings up another great question. We only grant to organizations that have a 501c3 within the United States.
Okay.
So many of the organizations that we fund, they may have been founded in the country of origin, but they understand that they also need a 501c3 here to fundraise in the United States. And so we will fund those organizations. But in order to get funded, you really have to be a 501c3 organization here. And the reason for that is so that we can ensure sort of that bond of trust with our members, that we are vetting things, we can follow the finances, we know we can look at their audits, There's transparency there with the IRS, and that's something that's very important, because not only are we investing in women and girls, but we're also helping people here make those connections to international organizations. And so we do everything that we can to create that bond of trust through our vetting process.
Okay, as you see, as the questions and comments have been continuing, where there could be an opportunity with the NPCA affiliate groups, either the RPCV Friends of groups or even regional groups, that many of them actually are 501c3s, and was pointed out in one of the answers is that Friends of Sierra Leone is a 501c3 group. So is there a chance, for example, that they could send in a proposal as a 501c3 Friends of group to outline and describe what a particular project would be in the country that they're interested in?
Well, it would be hard for me to say without looking further into the organization. I would encourage you to look at our grant criteria on our website. We do fund exclusively for projects that are on the ground affecting women and girls.
Right.
So any organization that we fund is only focused on issues affecting women and girls.
Okay, so I think, not to put words in your mouth, to restate what I think you're talking about, is that for many of the people who are watching tonight, as they are 501c3s affiliates with the NPCA, but they themselves are a 501c3, and they're looking for a program or have a program in a country that is focused on women and girls, they could be competitive to at least apply to Dining for Women to be considered. Is that right?
Yes, but again, they have to study our criteria, and I would also encourage them to study all of our past grantees to see, so that they can understand the types of grants that we make, and the types of grantees that are that seem to rise to the top.
Great. No, that makes total sense.
Mm-hmm.
And because you've got the criteria very well laid out on your website, any of the affiliate groups of NPCA can go to the website, give it a check, say, do we qualify? If we qualify, we can apply.
Right. Absolutely.
But I don't want to lose sight of the other side of what Dining for Women is about, which is here in the United States, and how women get together and how groups can actually set up a chapter of Dining for Women. And I think you have that all on your website. But the importance of what you do here in the U.S. to bring people together, women together, that many of whom are new to women and girls issues around the world.
That is true, but we also I want to point out that we do have couples chapters. We do, and I just heard of an all-male chapter that may be starting. So it's dining for women. It's not only dining of women.
Okay. All right. So it's really dining for women, but
for the benefit of women, right?
All right. Maybe it's women who prefer to dine, but it's men and
right.
Got it.
Right. So here are a few more Peace Corps connections that I wanted to point out. All of these are organizations that had connections to the Peace Corps that we have funded over the years. But one of the things that I really wanted to point out is the amazing connection between Returned Peace Corps volunteers and Dining for Women. Sue Malik is a Returned Peace Corps volunteer. She's also a Sargent Shriver Humanitarian Award winner. She is a chapter leader, Dining for Women chapter leader, and she is also on our grant selection committee as well. She said here that nothing has come as close to my Peace Corps experience as being involved with Dining for Women. And I think that it's because of the community that develops in each of the chapters and the learning that goes on and the commitment to making change that everybody in a Dining for Women chapter has. I have, this is another woman, Gracie Vaughn. I hope she's on the webinar. She was in Mozambique. She returned in 2010. As a returned Peace Corps volunteer, she has stayed in the field of international development, and she's the special projects advisor for another organization called Intl International, but she is a Dining for Women chapter leader. She started her chapter in 2014, I believe. And this, you can see, this is a picture of her chapter. She's had up to 10 returned Peace Corps volunteers in her chapter. She's in the Raleigh area. And this is just another example of how Dining for Women and returned Peace Corps volunteers are really, it's like magnets. We're just attracted to each other. Here's a little bit more information. We've given out over the past almost 15 years, 231 grants, over 150 organizations in around 44 countries. Our grants, our featured grants are 35 to 50,000. Our sustained grants go up to 60,000 over 3 years. Our average donation is $35. And with that, we're able to give, excuse me, up to about 24 grants a year between sustained and featured. So Dining for Women just has it's a wonderful place for people to take their need to be giving back to not only their local communities, but their international community for women and girls, and to really make a difference. And all you have to do is get 4 friends together and get a bottle of wine. Excuse me. I'm going to mute myself for a moment, Jody.
Okay, all right. You're going to get something to drink. Let me just note, as you excuse yourself, that NPCA just posted for all of us the website for Dining for Women so that you can go and learn a lot more. And that even looking at some of the small groups in countries working with women and girls, we can, through the affiliate groups, look at how we can help. And I'm going to come back to that a little bit later when I talk about Women and Peace Corps Legacy. But have you now had a drink? I mean, that kind of a drink, Beth Ellen, so that you can
yes. Continue? Sorry about that.
No problem.
Okay. So I'm curious to know how many returned Peace Corps volunteers we have on the webinar who might be interested in starting a chapter.
I'm not sure we'll get a full count on the webinar right now, but I think what might be helpful for any of you that are watching is that as you're interested and you go to the Dining for Women website, you might indicate, when you say I'm interested, indicate that you saw this webinar. And because that's really important, because as we want to continue webinars where we feature different organizations that work with women and girls around the world, for you to indicate that you saw the webinar and it's affecting what you might do, it will make it easier for us collectively to be able to continue this program.
Great. So I see that there is one person living in Indiana who would be interested in starting a chapter. So I hope that anyone who's interested will follow the link to diningforwomen.org/join-us, or just go to our website, diningforwomen.org, and the Join Us button is right there. And start a chapter. One of the things that I love is when a group of friends that never gets to see each other, they decide, you know what, let's just have a purpose. If we have a purpose, like empowering women and girls around the world, and we'll get together once a month, it makes it more of a priority. And people tend to see their friends more frequently, and they're getting together. They feel really good because they've done something wonderful together. And so they're seeing their friends that they don't get to see very often. They're taking care of themselves in that way, and they're also giving back to the world. And so it's just a beautiful thing.
One person asked, is there a cost to joining or starting a chapter?
There is a $50 fee to start a chapter, and that can be people collectively giving through the chapter leader. And then it's give what you're able, give what you can, give what is generous for your personal situation.
It sounds wonderful, and I love the idea of friends getting together.
It just makes it more of a priority then.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think when we think about it as choosing the projects in different countries that focus on women and girls, let's go back and think for a moment some of those data points about women and girls around the world. And every one of these projects to that group of women and girls is going to make a difference in them not marrying early, of being able to gain literacy, of getting into school, of moving on with a career that helps them be recognized and move forward in their community. And we often here in the United States take that for granted. And we need to keep remembering, and particularly for RPCVs, keep remembering that every day we have to be there for girls.
That's right. It's the key to ending extreme poverty. It's the key to having more peaceful communities and more prosperous communities. It's where the rubber meets the road, and it benefits everyone. I was just saying today, because of Day of the Girl, why, I have 2 little boys. And so why is the Day of the Girl important to me? Because if all the girls around my children are empowered, that is empowering for my sons. It makes a better community for my sons. It takes advantage of all of the talents that our full humanity offers, rather than ignoring half of it. And that is beneficial for all of us.
I love it. Any further comments? Oh, okay. One person suggested, are there anyone else on the call who would like to talk about their experience in a Dining for Women chapter? Anyone want to offer something on chat? If it takes a minute to type or you're thinking about it, what I can do is talk a little bit about Women of Peace Corps legacy, and then we can come back to that before we
Absolutely
say goodbye. Does that work for you?
Yes.
Okay. Any last comments before we switch over? Okay, are you going to take the slideshow off your screen? Aha, okay. I'm going to now talk a little bit about Women of Peace Corps legacy. And as I said right at the beginning, I'm not great at knowing how to do this, but I'm going to figure it out for everyone. Okay, we've talked about the International Day of the Girl, the importance of the girl, and dining for women as an important element of how programs work for girls. I wanted to mention a few things about Women in Peace Corps legacy. Just to say that it began with a group of women about 2 years ago who said, wait a minute, we went in the Peace Corps. We weren't quite sure what we were doing when we went in. This is not, at least at this time, because many of the women, including myself, went in the first decade or 2 decades, and recognized what Peace Corps did for us as women, and our own leadership, our own activities, our own community involvement, our own setting up chapters to help others came about because of our, in many cases, our own Peace Corps experience. And so part of the question is, how do we give back? How do we celebrate with Peace Corps, our Peace Corps experience, and with RPCVs and with the NPCA? How do we remind each other what a gift Peace Corps gave us and the kinds of gifts that we hopefully can give back and encourage other girls and women to stay involved and to take leadership positions? And so that's part of the theme of Women in Peace Corps legacy. And I wanted to talk about a couple of aspects of it. The first one being, I think what many of you are familiar with, is the Deborah Harding Women of Achievement Award that we give each year at the National Peace Corps Association annual get-together, the one in Washington in 2016 and in Denver 2017. We've given the award now twice. And you see here in this particular set of photos is Dee Acker, who was a Peace Corps volunteer in Colombia in the 60s, who went on to be a woman running a peace institute at the University of San Diego, and has devoted a lot of her attention to women and girls issues, particularly in Nepal. And she was and is our awardee for this year. And so you see her speaking to the group. The year before, as you see Sarah Goodkind. Sarah Goodkind was a Peace Corps volunteer in Romania in about 1994. And she and a small cohort were thinking about the girls in Romania just coming out of communism and how they had not seen leadership roles, and decided to put together a summer program for these girls. And that program ultimately became the GLOW program, the Women in Leadership for the World. And she ran this program, wrote it up, and then went back to the United States and ultimately went on for a PhD in social work, and teaches at the University of Pittsburgh and works primarily with women who are being trafficked. But she didn't even know what had happened to her program when she left Romania. And it was only in the last 5, 6, 7 years that Peace Corps tracked her down, and she began to realize that that small step that she took as a Peace Corps volunteer had become so important to women and girls around the world and a core element of Peace Corps' program. And you see on the right is Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, and she, the president of Liberia, and as many of you probably know, Liberia is having an election today. And after 12 years as president, she's leaving that post. She was the one who invited Peace Corps back into Liberia. She has personally gone to blow sites with Peace Corps during her time as president. She came to Washington specifically to give the award in 2016 to Sarah Goodkind. And here she is speaking to the Women of Peace Corps Legacy group following that event a year ago, September. And part of why she was able to come, took the time to come all the way to Washington to celebrate with NPCA, with the conference, and with Women of Peace Corps Legacy, is because Deborah Harding, for whom this award is named after, has worked with the president for many, many years, has developed programs for women and girls in Liberia. But Deborah's, among her many contributions for Peace Corps in the early years on staff, was that she actually developed the part of the Peace Corps legislation that started all the women in development programs with Peace Corps. And that's just why the name is named after Debbie. Just for you to see again, as part of the awards, is Sarah Goodkind and the president, and then the group of folks here who helped put that ceremony together. While we're looking at these photos, we're encouraging everyone to nominate a woman, and for this award, the woman needs to have some connection with Peace Corps, not necessarily a returned Peace Corps volunteer. It can be a former staff, a former volunteer, a person who has had different kinds of connections with Peace Corps and who has made a difference, as you see these two women have, for women and girls around the world, here in the US, subsequent to whatever that Peace Corps contact was. So you can submit a nominee. You have until the end of March to do so. All the information is on our website, and at the end of the PowerPoint, you will see our website address. In fact, you see it here. What our goal is not to sponsor programs. In fact, the only real project we have is to honor a Woman of Achievement every year in conjunction with NPCA. But we want to bring women together. We want to, and this comes directly from the website, that we want to be able to encourage ourselves to reflect, to serve, to mentor, and to give. And so we do this by, on the reflecting, hopefully hosting stories that you have that comes from that reflection, photos, articles, to say this is how Peace Corps affected me as a woman and how I turn that into being helpful for other women and girls in the US and around the world. As I mentioned before, we have the Deborah Harding Award, and when you go to the website, you'll see the nomination, and that's where you can push the button and you can nominate somebody online. You see our mission and our goals, and that it's important that we do this individually and that we do this collectively as women. And so there we are. That the reflection on our service, and actually if you set up a Dining for Women chapter, you could reflect on your service as one of those chapter conversations over dinner. That as you're with family, reflect on your service. As you work in community groups, that reflect on your service. Because these all share the word. This is part of what the third goal is about. Mentoring. I find that for myself, I have mentored over years and years. And now as I'm at the University of Maryland, I find that I reach out particularly to students and students who are really thinking about working internationally, of just personally getting involved with women and girls and being with them, helping them with education, helping them with finding others, talking to them, sharing your own stories. We all can do more of that than what we're already doing, no matter how much we're doing. And the reaching in the pockets and making donations. Again, Dining for Women is a very interesting example. There are many others that I'll mention in a moment. And then to say, serve in your communities. We can give back locally. And giving back locally, again, I work in Baltimore City, and I find that my community activities that are just blocks from the university, and how do I help mentor first graders or fifth graders and be part of community meetings and think about how a community can bring it for itself a service it doesn't have. These are all the steps, the big steps, and the little steps that's important for each of us to take. And so this is what Women of Peace Corps Legacy, what we really work hard to do, is to encourage all of us, all women, all returned volunteers, former staff interested in Peace Corps, to say we have ways of giving back because Peace Corps gave so much to you. I wanted to note in how do we serve? How do we give? And so I wanted to remind everybody that in the Peace Corps Small Projects Fund that you can find on the Peace Corps website, there's many projects that are for women and girls. And so I just brought up this one just for one, because there's a whole set about Let Girls Learn, but there's many other projects that are, $2,000, $5,000, $10,000 that any one of the RPCV groups can, contribute to. And as you see, and as you know from your own experience, it makes such a difference. It makes such a huge difference. And again, just to note that every one of us, any one of our affiliate groups, to take that moment and think about what can I do for women and girls? And what we have at Women in Peace Corps Legacy, we are building a database of small nonprofit organizations that support women and girls activities. And through NPCA, what we really want to continue to do is to make available to you the information about these organizations, and with that, give you more opportunities to share, more opportunities to mentor, more opportunities to give back specifically for women and girls. I just noticed one question, and Women of Peace Corps Legacy is not part of Peace Corps. Actually, we're affiliate of NPCA, and we're very, very proud of that. And we are our own independent 501c3. We have no staff. We do this all as volunteers. And our goal and how we want to be helpful to NPCA and all of you as affiliate groups and individuals of share with you. We're tweeting a lot more now where we're giving this information. We're on Facebook to say, here are groups, here are examples of the kind of groups that can that you can think about supporting however you would like to support these groups. And the webinar tonight is one of the ways that we want to be able to share these groups and these opportunities with you. There are, as I see in one of the comments, there are many groups that support women and girls, many groups in countries that Peace Corps serves, and many groups in the United States that are supporting in very careful ways women and girls. what we feel that we can do is build the awareness of these groups, like Dining for Women. We really want to build the awareness of these groups and get more of us as women involved with these groups and the difference that we can make with these groups. At this point, I think that I've talked about Women of Peace Corps Legacy. We have talked about Dining for Women. If there's any last minute or additional question, we're happy to take another minute or two. We have been almost 1 hour, and I'm pleased, very, very pleased of the number of people who are participating and how important I think it is for us to, on this day, take this moment to celebrate women and girls everywhere and what we can do individually and collectively for women and girls everywhere. This particular webinar has been recorded, and it is going to be on the Dining for Women website. It will be on the Women of Peace Corps Legacy website, and it will be on the NPCA website. So thank you very much. And I hope that you will see other chances for us through Women of Peace Corps Legacy to continue to feature organizations to give you more ideas as to how you can contribute for women and girls. Beth Ellen, do you have any last comment?
Just needed to unmute myself.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I feel so excited and grateful that Dining for Women was the organization you selected first at Women of Peace Corps Legacy for one of these webinars. And I look forward to meeting all the returned Peace Corps volunteers at our chapter meetings.
Well, this is great. And as you see, one comment is one of the former students of a Sierra Leone volunteer became headmistress of the school. I mean, it's just one tiny example of thousands of how we make a difference, one girl at a time. So thank you all. We will say goodbye. And I want to thank NPCA one more time for hosting this and for being such a terrific supporter of women and girls.
Yes, thank you so much to the National Peace Corps Association for hosting this.
Okay, here we go. And we have someone who is actually in Turkey, and she said it was a long time ago. And I know because of when we left Turkey, she has to be about my age. Anyway, this is
fantastic.
Anyway, thank you all, and I really appreciate the time and energy, and we're going to continue to give feedback and give you choices to participate. And with that, I think we'll call the meeting or the webinar to an end. Thank you.